They could not see how the host of Israel was to subsist in their long travels through the wilderness. They could not see how the host of Israel was to subsist in their long travels through the wilderness upon the simple food they then had. And in their unbelief they saw their children famishing. So they were imagining that their children were going to starve to death. Nobody was starving, but they were imagining that this is what's going to happen soon.
Which is what we do too when we have a problem. We're like, oh no, they're going to do da da da, and we worry about things and we imagine them.
Mm-hmm. Worry is blind and cannot see the future. The Lord was willing that they should be brought short in their food and that they should meet with difficulties, that their hearts should turn to Him who had hitherto helped them, that they might believe in Him. He was ready to be a present help. If, in their want, they would call upon Him, He would manifest to them tokens of His love and continual care. But they seemed to be unwilling to trust the Lord any further. Then they could witness before their eyes the continual evidences of His power. You see, even though Egypt was a place of bondage and slavery, they saw it as a comfort zone. And so Heavenly Father called them out of the comfort zone and into the wilderness. The wilderness is the growth zone. But they didn't like that. You see, there's not very much growth in the comfort zone. And there's not very much comfort in the growth zone. So we don't naturally choose the growth zone. We naturally choose the comfort zone. And even though the comfort zone may be toxic, we choose the comfort zone. That's why women can get beat up, dragged around in an abusive relationship with alcohol, with drugs, and there's an abusive man over her, but she has some security because if she's with him, well, she doesn't have to worry about the other men out there. So there's some kind of security within this abusive relationship. But there's times when God calls us to have courage and get out of the comfort zone that's really not that comfortable. And then we can get into the growth zone. They were not willing to trust God any farther than their eyes could see. They were like the antediluvians, who would not believe that there any such thing as rain existed until they saw the flood. If you don't believe what God has said will come in the future, then you will be just as unprepared for the flood as the people in Noah's time.
So we do have this type of situation that's coming in the future where we are going to have to fully depend on the Lord because we have no one else we can turn to, no one else that can help us. And I'm talking about the time of trouble. So right now we need to be working on our growth zone, and we can voluntarily do that and say, okay, Lord, like I want to learn your laws of health, and I want to be a light for you, and I want to go out on the street and tell people about you and give my testimony and serve you. Or we can choose to just stay where we are, and then you have to be tested and you have to be proved. So then trials can come your way. So I'm not saying it's one or the other. It's usually both. So we have a choice on our end what we're going to do. But if we stay in the comfort zone, we're not going to remain there forever. We'll either like fall away from the Lord or get closer to the Lord. You can't just be lukewarm.
Did the Israelites choose to leave the comfort zone?
They were forced to choose to leave the comfort zone.
Or reluctantly or not.
Yeah,
They weren't
that's what
like,
I mean, yeah.
I mean, I think at first they were excited about it. Like, oh yeah, we're going to be free. We got all this stuff. But then they're
It was
like,
a
oh.
progressional process to it.
So would you say they reluctantly chose to leave the comfort zone?
Yep.
Which is like most of us probably.
And when they were in the growth zone of the wilderness, did they regret their choice? Instead of blaming themselves for making the choice to leave the comfort zone, they blamed Moses and Aaron. So they did regret it. But instead of owning up to it that we chose to leave Egypt, they said, Moses and Aaron, you led us out of Egypt. They could have said, oh, we regret this choice that we made to leave Egypt. We made a really wrong choice. They could have said that, but that would take humility. And it's not easy to be humble. So it was easier in their human nature to say, oh, Moses and Aaron, you influenced us. You led us out here to kill us.
Yes, we don't usually want to take responsibility.
Yes.
So what are other things that people can do for their growth zone?
When I started gardening, my dad told me, well, it's kind of a waste of time to garden because, you know, if you count your hours for plowing, planting, harvesting, canning, you're only making like maybe $2 an hour. He's like, so it's better to just get a job and earn money and then buy your food at the grocery store. That's what he told me. But when you're in the garden, you're sweating and you're learning to observe different insects. You're getting fresh air and sunshine. And then when you do pick that tomato, you don't waste it because you work so hard on that tomato. And then you value that tomato and you appreciate that tomato and you savor that tomato and you share that tomato with your neighbor maybe. And so you may not want to garden, you may not feel like gardening, but have a garden. And when you're pulling out the weeds, and the weeds don't want to give up easily and they don't want to come out by the roots, you say, Jesus, I have the weeds of sin in my life. Please pull them out. And the garden is a growth zone.
So with the garden, I like to look at it in the sense that I want organic food and I want my food in glass. And if I was to pay someone to do that, it would cost significantly more than me doing it myself. So I see besides the other benefits that you had mentioned, I see the benefit in that. And then the other thing I was going to say is for your growth zone, if you're not having time in the morning with the Lord, then that can be your growth zone. You can start spending time with the Lord every morning for an hour.
You mentioned this earlier. There's a growth zone called evangelism. So if Jesus has set you free from the bondage of sin, He set you free from sinful addictions, then within the calling that He gives us to go and teach all nations, Bible tells me to go and preach the gospel to every creature. So if you've been set free from sin, you can make a sign that says, "Are you right with God?" And you can stand on the side of a street or in a park or on the sidewalk and you can pray for every passing person. And if somebody stops, you can ask them, "Oh, Mr. Smoker, would you like for Jesus to set you free from the poison of tobacco?" And you can stand outside of the liquor store, on the sidewalk of course, and you can ask the alcoholics, "Would you like for Jesus to set you free from the poisonous addiction of alcohol?" And you can be bold, and it can be hard out there, but that is a growth zone.
Also, if you consider yourself to be really timid and you think, I can't go and talk to people, So step one would be when you're out and about and at the grocery store, like smile at people.
Yes.
Help them put their groceries in their car. Put their cart away for them. Something so that you're starting down that road and you'll grow to where you can say these things to people on the street.
And you may feel like, oh, I can't preach. I can't sing on the street. That's embarrassing. I can't do that. Well, you can get some Bible tracts. And when you go to the grocery store, you can tell the cashier, thank you for the good work that you're doing. Here's something for you to read later. You can give out Bible tracts. And at first, maybe you'll feel nervous to do it, but eventually you'll grow. Evangelism is a large growth zone. But many people are too embarrassed or unwilling to enter into that growth zone.
One of the growth zones that I had previously was modesty. So on my modesty journey, I had several different levels of modesty, but it was like a road that I went down, and it was definitely a growth zone.
Yes. Yes. It's not easy to stick out like a sore thumb. When John the Baptist was clothed in camel's hair with a leather girdle around him, people thought, oh, he looks strange. Why is he dressed that way? Why doesn't he dress like a normal person? He looks very old-fashioned or primitive. And what is he talking about? Prepare the way for the Lord? Why doesn't he eat food like we eat? Why is his diet so simple? Is he insane? And if you dress modestly and you dress plainly, people will think the same thoughts about you that they thought about John the Baptist. They mocked John the Baptist. But they were curious too, and they came out either to be fed by the message or to find fault with the message.
So you may think, this is terrible. I can't change my dress. Like, people are going to say things to me, and I don't know how I'm going to handle it. But the fire that we're going to experience in the future is going to be really hot. And we need to learn to stand up and be bold and do what the Lord's calling us to do, no matter if people make fun of us or say things about you or make you uncomfortable. Because we need to be prepared for the future.
Yes. So we mentioned diet is a growth zone. You know, there's people out there that may accuse you of almost child abuse if you tell your children you're not allowed to drink Coca-Cola, you're not allowed to drink soda pop. Let's not drink that stuff. Let's not eat that stuff. That's a growth zone. And many people never grow because they love the unhealthy comfort zone. See, air conditioner is a comfort zone. But air conditioner ruins you. Because then you step outside and you're like, oh, it's so hot. I can't go out and work in the garden. But if you turn your air conditioner off, and it's just as hot in your house as it is outside, then you won't have so much motivation to stay inside your house. You'll go outside. So don't make life so easy on yourself. Do hard things. So if I go like this, and I do it, if I do that every single day, my bones will be stronger a month from now. Or broken. So, you know, I could just do this every day. But that doesn't build bone.
So if you do have air conditioning and you want to take Titus's advice, you can start by turning the thermostat up and go in stages.
Well, you know, you could just turn it off. And
You can, but if that seems like impossible, you can make tiny steps.
Or you could just turn it off and put the fans on. But honestly, like, it's very hard to get motivated to work in the garden if you're always in the air conditioner.
So another thing is, if you decide to take Titus's advice on this, take a cold shower before you go to bed. It will help you sleep.
That's
It will
another
cool you down.
that's another growth zone. So you know, we like a warm bath or a warm shower. But one day God's people will be in the wilderness, and there will be no hot showers. There will be no hot baths. And if you want to get clean, you will have to jump in the creek or the river or the pond or the lake. You'll have to jump in, and you'll have to be in the cold water. So wouldn't it be wise to acclimatize yourself to the rigors of the wilderness now, rather than being in the shock of it? Families, instead of going to the amusement park, where you pay money to roll around and go upside down, why don't you spend your time going on a camping trip? So your comfort zone is in your home, but the camping trip can be a bonding experience for your children, for your family, and that can be your growth zone.